Parsha Vayeitzei represents for us, Rabbi, an incredible opportunity to gain insight to a concept that I've shared many times over the years. And the fact that I shared many times is not because I forgot what I said in the previous years, but it's exactly for what happened this past week when I got a text from one of the students in Eretz Yisrael. And he sent me, seemingly very excited. It's hard to tell the excitement over WhatsApp, but he seemed very excited by the fact that his Rabbi mentioned the concept. And this Talmud says, oh yeah, I've heard that from my Rabbi many times in the past in high school. And the fact that he can remember that concept and know that concept, and in this particular case, it's so fundamental to a particular issue of not just relationships in general, but specifically in the relationship of a husband and wife. And just this is going back probably 15, 20 years when a ninth grader had to leave Valley Torah High School after ninth grade. They moved to Eretz Yisrael. And to get a letter from this young man some years later, I think it was this particular shmooze that he was referring to. He wasn't very clear about the shmooze, but he did say how much he appreciated what he received at Valley Torah High School. And he specifically pointed to the concept of what it is to be a husband and what a marriage from the Torah point of view is all about. This is very, very important to really gain this insight that Rabbi one of the great Bali Musa of the early generation, shares with us about what happened in Parsha Vayeitzei. Because we have Yaakov, you know the story, you have Yaakov working 7 years for Rachel. And the Pasuk says something that's really counterintuitive, he points out. The Pasuk says that those 7 years flew by. Those 7 years literally were like Yomim Achadim, like very, very, like just a few days. But in his love for Rachel, in his anticipation of marrying Rachel, in his desire to connect to Rachel and to build what Yaakov certainly understood was the shiftei kol, he recognized his destiny. He recognized his responsibility. And he was focused on building a shiftei kol. So it certainly could not be anything but something very noble and very spiritual. But what seems very strange about this pasuk, points out Rabbi, is why in the world, when you're waiting for something, when you're anticipating something, when you're longing for an event, it doesn't go by in a few days. When you think about something that you're anticipating, if you had Lahavdol Olaf Havdolos, you had courtside seats, and there's some incredible event, some sports event that is happening in, let's say, beginning of February, or maybe in June, or maybe in October, and you've got the best seats in the house, and you're waiting for that event to happen. When you count down the days, does it seem that time is flying? Or does it seem like it's forever? When you're waiting for something to happen, it does not fly by. The reality that we feel in terms of our experience is that it seems like it goes on, it's going so slow. I can only wait another day. When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? So why would the Pasuk say that those 7 years flew by like a couple of days in Yaakov's love for Rachel, when it should seem like it took 20 years. That's how long he was waiting. 7 years, he worked 7 years to marry this woman that he wanted so much to start building the shiftei kol with. And he points out something very fascinating, Rabbi saying. Like so many other things that we have to sort of look and contrast the world's values with our values, with the Torah values. How we have to constantly reinforce this concept of how special we are. And how the world, in so many ways, there's certainly a lot of wonderful things going on out there, but there are a lot of really crazy things going on out there. And our job is to discern what do I see that I have to reject and say, this is not acceptable, this is not who I am, this is not a Torah value, versus maybe some things that we can actually learn from. There is Chachma out there. Might not be Torah out there, but there's Chachma out there. But our job, Rabbi, is to see and to discern, to be a thinking individual. And he points out that the word love, ahava, from the Torah's perspective, is so much different than the love that we associate. When we use the word love, think about our Vayeitzei. We love music, we love sports, we love this, we love that. When you think about that word, it's always about what we get out of that particular endeavor. When we love sports because we love the excitement of watching a sporting event. We love music. It isn't like you donate $100,000 a year to the National Arts Center because you love the concept of arts. When you say, I love music, I love what music does for me. It gives me something. So notice how the entire language in the secular world, how love is turned up on its head. And it gives this incredible mashal about somebody who says, somebody's walking by and he hears somebody, a nice little table in front of a restaurant, and he hears the words, I love fish. So he decides, this guy loves fish. Let me see about what this, because clearly there was something going to be happening because this guy loved fish. So he decides to move to the side and see, what does this guy that loves fish about to be involved in? So he notices that 15 minutes later, the guy comes out with a plate of salmon, grilled salmon with the skin, almost like the whole thing, like you can buy certain fish, you can order certain, you can literally see the whole fish. What? Very good, a branzino. And you got the whole fish right there, and you take out your knife and your fork, and you start, and he's looking at this, and he's cutting up the fish, sticking a knife into the fish. This guy loves fish. Doesn't love fish. If he loved fish, he'd buy a beautiful aquarium like some people have in their homes. And he'd sit there every night and he'd give this one this name and that one that name. And there's Nemo and there's Waldo and there's this one and there's that one. And every fish would have its own name with its own special relationship. I just heard this week, a woman sees that her dog, sees her dog is being swallowed up by a mountain lion. And this, I don't think this woman was some kind of a weightlifter or super powerful lady, but she runs out and she grabs the mountain lion, opens up the mountain lion's mouth to save her dog, and sends the mountain lion going off on his way as the dog thankfully got saved. That's a woman who loves her pet. She loves her dog. Not what the dog did for her, what she does for the dog. What she did for a pet that she appreciates. Rabbi Simon points out really up and down, do we hear what we're saying when we talk about loving something? When you talk about the Torah's love, it's not about what that particular person or entity or concept does for me. It's what I do for that. What I do for it. What I do for that other person. The word Ava, as we might have heard many, many times, but do we really think about it? We talk about V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha, V'ahavta Re'acha Kamocha. The word Ava, which is so central to Jewish existence and Jewish thought, comes from the word Hav. It comes from the word giving. When the Torah says that Avrohom, that Yaakov had 7 years go by because of his love for Rachel, Rabbi Yisai was about what he was ready to do for Rachel, what he was ready to give to Rachel. And that giving didn't have to wait. That giving was something that he was involved with as we speak. He was giving. The 7 years was in a sense an investment plan about what life is all about, what's important in life. He was able to give to her. He shared with her. When we talk about how many times do we hear, and you think about it, really almost in any endeavor in the world today, it's always about what I get. Well, it's always about numero uno, about what I'm going to receive from the situation. When it comes to marriage, what's a successful marriage? How many times, and you can hear people, even people who are God-fearing people, but if they don't understand this concept of what our Baruch Hu designed a marriage to be about, and a husband-wife relationship, what it was all about, you can easily miss the boat. A lot of people who marriage sounds great. I got this wonderful lady in my house, and I got my laundry taken care of. I got my physical needs taken care of. She's a great cook. It's fantastic. It's really great. That's why the Torah designed marriage. Is that why the Torah why the Gemara calls it Kedushin? Is that why the consummation of a marriage is called Nisuin, when you are carrying to be when you're carrying that tremendous responsibility of taking care of this woman who you're committing your life to? Is that what it's all about, Rabbi Simon? I'll never forget, it was many years ago, and I think we're Feldman's Zangazut Stark, Yeshiva B'nai Yisrael was not yet Rosh Yeshiva. He came to the valley. He came to speak at as a scholar in residence in Shaarei Tzedek. And he spoke about relationships. And this was, like I said, maybe 20 years ago or so. And I was excited because here's a very questionable person. Like I said, I don't think it was Yeshiva at that point. I'm pretty sure he wasn't. But certainly he was known to be an incredible Talmud Chacham. Somebody who's written extensively on Torah subjects. And I happen to be sort of viewed as the anti-socializing person, at least to some degree around. And I was very excited that I had somebody who I was confident was going to share my view about the whole idea of socializing, about teenagers, boys and girls, the whole thing that we are very often talking about. And sure enough, he spoke about a wonderful topic about marriage, and then he opened for questions. I figured, listen, I got a few other people in the room. Okay, I've got this Adam Gadol who's presenting, outsider, it had nothing to do with me. And I decided to ask him a question that I've heard many times from other people. I figured, let me pose a question that many people in the room are sort of thinking is totally okay in terms of socializing, and let me see how he answers it. And I remember raising my hand, he called on me, and I said, Rabbi Feldman, what do you say to those people who argue that it's healthy for boys and girls to have friends and to be involved in relationships in high school? How else are you going to know how to talk to somebody? How else are you going to be comfortable going out when you have to go out? So of course, doesn't it make sense to have sort of a social milieu of boys and girls together in high school to make it sort of a nice preparatory plan to get married? And you hear that from many different parents along the way. Even today, well, that question almost seems almost comical in today's world, but even 20 years ago, it was still a somewhat serious question by many parents. And Baruch Hashem, when he looked at me, and he was respectful, but he basically ripped me to shreds. They basically told me what a foolish question that was. I was extremely happy. And he said, you don't get it. So not me, but people who ask that question don't get it. And if you believe in that question, you don't get it either. And he said, why don't you stop and look and let's be honest about something, he said. When a boy and a girl are going out, when they develop friendships, when they develop this whole social scene, what attitude is a boy developing in his heart and his mindset about this girl? Let's be honest. And he says, look around, and it's probably way more true. As much as it was 100% true then, it's if possible even more true today. He says when a boy is developing a relationship with a girl at 14, 15, 16, and 17, there is one element that he's focusing in on. Are there exceptions? Yeah, maybe there are some exceptions. But if you look at the general mentality of a teenage boy, he's got the exact mentality of what the Torah is saying is unacceptable. He's looking at the relationship of what's in it for me. The word love that he might use in that relationship is a joke. That's love of loving sports and loving music and loving so many other things that the determination is what I get from the relationship. That's how you want to get ready for marriage? By developing an attitude about women that it's what's in it for me, that's what's important? Because that's what teenagers feel. It's not a criticism again. It's just a reality. They're not ready, they're not mature enough to understand what it is that a relationship with a wife is all about. So that's how you want to get ready? That's how you want to develop this perspective? Do we have to look at the outside world and see what goes on at these spring breaks and all these other kind of crazy shenanigans that go on in the high school and in the college world? Where it's literally one thing? Where they love spring break, trust me, they're loving spring break because of what they get out of it. What they do to themselves. The pleasure they receive. And somehow that type of world, where that's the talk, and that's the focus, and that's the mentality, you're telling me that's going to prepare you to embark upon a life with a woman that you're bound and your responsibility is to give? Boundless and endless giving. Rabbi said the Torah is telling us that if you want true satisfaction in this world, develop this mentality. Because if you are a taker, then you will never be happy. There's always more to take. There's always more to want. And that's why marriages fall apart, and that's why relationships fall apart, because if it's about taking, I took what I can take. Now I got to take some more. It's too stale. I'm not getting enough out of this. Rabbi said givers are always happy. if you're a giver, if what you understand about your existence is what makes me happy is to be able to share and to give and to invest in people, there's no end to the joy that you can have because you're always able to give. You can give with your money, you can give with your time, you can give with your energy, with your emotions, you can connect to people. And when you look at truly successful people, Rabbi said, you see what they talk about, what really is satisfying in their lives. It's not the millions, it's not the success, it's not the fame and fortune, it's about the ability to actually impact and touch another person's life. That's what life is about. That's what the Pasuk is teaching us. Because when you are giving, time flies. When you are invested in somebody, time flies. And that's why the Pasuk can say for 7 years it flew by because Yaakov Avinu was on a mission of giving, a mission of true love, a mission where he understood that the absolute beauty of a husband and wife relationship is about what each one brings to the table for the other one. You say, so you look at incredible marriages. You look at, to stop and to think that Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach Zatzal can say at the levaya of his wife, you have to normally ask mechila when you have a relative, a close person, and you say goodbye to them. And you have that opportunity. Very often you ask mechila for whatever I did wrong. They were married, I think, well over 50 years. Can you imagine saying that I don't have to ask mechila? Because there was never a word between us. There's never a situation where where there was somehow we crossed each other. How incredible is that, Rabbi say? How incredible is it that Rabbi Levine Zatzal, the great tzaddik of Yerushalayim, he walks into a doctor's office with his wife whose leg needed to be worked upon, some kind of pain in her leg, and he says to the doctor, and it wasn't a play on words and an exaggeration. He says, "Our foot is hurting. Our foot is hurting." That's a oneness, Rabbi say, that you can't duplicate in the secular world. It is almost impossible to even imagine that kind of commitment. You ask a typical marriage, a typical couple, what was the happiest day of your life? When were you the most in love? When was your marriage at its pinnacle of connection? And most people will tell you, what do you mean? When we were newlyweds, and the honeymoon, and the beginning, the wedding, that whole special Shangri-La type of experience that I felt. You ask a Torah-dicted couple, at which point do you feel the love between you and your wife the greatest? It's today. It's the longest amount of time that we were together, the longest amount of time that we invested in one another, that we've given to one another, that we've shared with one another, that we've built together with one another. That's the greatest love. Because the more you give and the more you invest, the greater the love grows. And that's why for a Torah-dicted relationship, it's always the last possible moment, because that's where the love has accumulated. And the connection has accumulated. And one last story about my Rebbe Zatzal. An incredible story. Just again, it shows the Rosh Yeshiva was not blessed with children. And because he was so focused on his Talmidim, Rabbi Leibowitz, Rosh Yeshiva of Chavetz Chaim for many decades. And the story, a well-known story about the fact that the Rebbitzin sort of doted over him and did not almost let him never do any work. It was possible to maybe look at the relation between the Rebbitzin and the Rosh Yeshiva in a way where this is like a king. He's like he's a melech. He doesn't do anything because she won't let him. And one day she had to go to the doctor. And she was suspicious. The Rosh Yeshiva has a lot of appointments. He has shurim to prepare, shmuzim to give. I'm going to have to leave now. I know that his sink is full of dishes. I can't have my husband, the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Henech Leibowitz Zatzal, doing dishes. So she shut off the water by the sink. Because that was her schus. Her schus was that my husband should be devoted totally to Klal Yisrael. So she says to the Yeshiva, the water's off, there's no water in the sink, so don't bother to wash the dishes. And he said, thank you, and she left. And when she came back, much to her shock and dismay, the dishes were clean. Dishes were washed. She couldn't believe it. She saw the water was still off. There was no water in the sink. What happened? So she went over to the Yeshiva and she said, well, I told you that how do you wash the dishes? There's no water in the sink. I told you. He says, well, yeah, of course you told me, but there was water in the bathtub. I used the water in the bathtub. I washed the dishes. And here's a man who literally almost never had to do that because his wife didn't let him. But the one time where she had an appointment and she couldn't be there, that was the time that he said, you know what, now it's my time. He gave obviously many other ways, but even something as mundane as washing dishes, I got to grab that. How often do I have a chance to do that for my wife? When you live, Rabbi, saying that kind of a mindset, when you appreciate that's what a marriage is about, when you look at the way special husbands and wives, from a Torah-dic point of view, the way they talk about each other, the way they give to one another, the way they smile at one another, the way there's such a deep sense of connection, everybody said that's irreplaceable and that's priceless. We should develop that mentality because that's what's going to make us happy, everybody said. The probably most important relation we have is a relation with our wives. We can appreciate this, work on this. It does not happen overnight. You just can't wake up one day and say, you know, I'm 23 years old, I just got married, okay, now I'm going to start becoming a giver. Very hard. It starts now. It starts when we're in school. It starts with our friends. It starts with our parents. This is who we need to be because this is going to guarantee. It's almost a selfish kind of motivation because it will guarantee our happiness. Rabbi said we can be takers or we can be givers. Let's develop Yaakov's understanding. Life flies by. When you are giving, life flies by. Because every day is special and every day is meaningful. Let's follow in that footsteps. Let's have a life of happiness and result for God's Hashem to be us and yourself and everywhere. I